Every stan and/or individual with a high interest in animation has of course heard of the infamous Pixar Lunch. The Pixar Lunch, where many top Pixar creators gather together and combine their collective intellect to come up with the basic premise and ideas for many of their movies that would come in the following years. Well, it turns out we had ourselves one of those life-altering days as well. Nearly 6 years ago, as of the recording of this video, Meepigs and I participated in a class trip that brought us to the big old capital of Ontario, Canada, Toronto. And while we could go on and on about how this very trip was the very thing that cemented our friendship and is a huge turning point in both of our lives, that is not today's topic. Instead, the significance of this field trip in relation to today's story was the journey we had to Toronto. Turns out the journey is truly greater than the destination. And while many of our fellow pubescent classmates were instead gossiping about the latest Vanos gaming video or singing Where the Watermelons Grow, slightly off key, we instead were occupied with something else, which of course was our very own Pixar-esque creative gathering. During this highly intellectual discussion that we definitely without a doubt knew would shape everything we would work towards in the future, we didn't. There were 3 major ideas that were presented. The first idea was a project known as Kirby's Inside Story, which was a basic spoof on the infamous Bowser's Inside Story, but of course instead taking place in the Kirby universe. The basic plot focused on a Waddle Dee who would try to survive living inside of the vicious creature that is Kirby, and his many not-so-wholesome adventures he would have inside of Kirby's bowels. The series would have focused on the trauma he faced from losing his best friend, dealing with social injustice, aka cannibals, his many attempts in trying to escape the intestine-filled world, and his eventual and sad fate that was becoming Bandana Waddle Dee, Protector of the Weak. We were definitely normal kids, I swear! At one point, we honestly had quite a basic rundown of how the entire story would shake down, but because of the fact that it contained copyrighted material and wasn't so family-friendly, we instead decided to put our energy into other ideas. However, maybe it could work as a YouTube animation parody thing. Who knows? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. The second idea we had was going to be a series known as Broken. Broken was an idea we had for what I guess you could consider as anime that would focus on the 2 main characters, Vincent, who was a snarky, hoodie-loving 22-year-old elf, and Enzor, who was a sentient amulet who could transform at will into a scythe. We wanted the series to focus on the 2 characters' dynamic, an unlikely pairing, which would appear to be coincidental and comedic in the beginning, however would slowly dissolve into a very emotional story that contains sacrifice, trauma, and Gravity Falls-esque mysteries and story progression. My god, why did we have such a focus on characters with trauma? Anyway, finally, the last idea we had on this trip is something that still has a working title, however we like to refer it to as Merchant Mayhem. This would have been a spin-off series to Broken and would have focused on 2 merchants who would sell their goods and relics to Vincent and the extremely comedic adventures they would have while obtaining these very gizmos. Think The Lion King 1.5, but in a fantasy land. While many people usually just talk crap and think creatively with their friends for the heck of it, we ended up actually pitching ideas that we liked so much that we still work on Broken and Merchant Mayhem to this day. However, one slight thing that should be noted is that Merchant Mayhem has switched from being a spin-off series to being its own entity, simply set in the same universe as Broken, and Broken is just completely changed with barely any resemblance of the initial pitch!
Like stated before, the name is still a work in progress, but nonetheless, the main idea of Merchant Mayhem follows the 2 characters, Mike and Ty, who are 2 merchants who sell anything from potions, clothes, figures, and legendary one-of-a-kind weapons of mass destruction to any adventurer or hero that requires anything of the sort. But the best way we like to summarize the idea is with one simple question. Do you ever play a game and see some really powerful gear and question how the merchant got it? Well, This is their story. Like our original concept for Broken, Merchant Mayhem's main focus is on character dynamics and the deep relationships they have with one another, and creating a strong sense of world building by creating an immersive world with many characters of all sorts of shapes and sizes. And of course, a huge focus on zany humor that the likes of animation has never had the chance of seeing before. Well, maybe except for Kronk's New Groove. Ever since that fateful bus ride to Toronto, where we came up with the original rough concept for these ideas, we've slowly been developing it more and more to something that has evolved into something we cherish and care about so much, and we can't wait to share more, hopefully over many years.
With the recent rise of VTubers and mentally deranged online personalities such as Scott the Wise, you may be wondering, are Tinix and Meepigs real? I mean, that's obviously not the name on their birth certificates, and there's no way that a literal mega brain intellectual and a literal god amongst this world could be best friends. Well, yes and no. Heck, we don't even know ourselves. While Tinix and Meepigs may be caricatures of us, they may in fact be our true selves. Just watch or read Ready Player One and you'll understand. Okay, kid? And wait, are Mike and Ty of Merchant Mayhem the same as Tinix and Meepigs, but with an animated Dungeons and Dragons aesthetic? No! While they may have a similar character dynamic to Tinix and Meepigs, they are their own thing in their own world/brand. But rest assured, anywhere out there in the vast World Wide Web, you will find us acting the same regardless of which social media platform we are on. But be warned, here at this very channel may be where we go hard with our dynamic in relation with one another and fall into our early 2000s-esque tropes.
The eventual goal is for Mike and Ty of Merchant Mayhem to appear in a bigger project, but that could be a video on its own. Watch time, baby! But for now, they will be seen in other projects. To elaborate, we are currently working on a project, a video game, to test the waters of the franchise and characters, which has the working title of Frank the Harvester. Yes, the very Frank from Disney Pixar's Cars. Also, side note, other projects we are not currently disclosing, there's a lot of them, have working titles based off of Cars characters, and don't ask. Anyways, more on this game project in the near future. Some other ideas we have for Mike and Ty is to create little animated shorts and possibly comics, but for now, this is all early hearsay. But we have huge ambitions and ideas for an entire world and brand as a whole, which contains many of the projects we have discussed. But for now, keep an eye out for the game, because that is the most developed, and a large portion of it is actually already complete. While many of these projects are in very early stages of development and are far from final, we hope you continue to watch us, participate in this journey that is trying to form a multimedia intellectual property, and try to control every form of media that exists and provide you simple-minded Earth dwellers with this so-called entertainment to fill you and distract you from your pathetic little minds before we bring an end to everything you know.